Buenos días y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome once again to Tiempo. I'm Joe Torres. CUNY, the City University of New York, is the Big Apple's public university system that serves more than 500,000 students, mostly from low-income families. Well, CUNY now faces devastating cuts in state funding. We will tell you what advocates are doing to stop these cuts from taking effect. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Pero en este momento, we're talking about Cuba once again. More specifically, President Obama's historic trip to the communist nation, the first visit by a U.S. president to Cuba in 88 years. Mr. Obama met with Cuban President Raul Castro, dissidents as well, and he attended a baseball game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Cuban national team. Will the president's visit trigger a cascade of new commerce between the two nations? Here to answer that question and so many others, our good friend Vito Echevarria, consultant for Travolucion.com, and Ben Greenswag from Momentum Events, the organizer of the Cuba Opportunity Summit that just wrapped up here in New York City. Welcome to you both. Good to see you, my friend. What a visit from the president, yeah? Historic, 88 years. Took a long time. I've got a bunch of questions.
Sure.
First one, let's start with the one where you just asked there. Do you anticipate, as a result of this visit, that the floodgates are open now in terms of commerce between the two countries?
Most definitely. I mean, you have a lot of companies jockeying for position, everybody from Starwood and Marriott to independent outfits such as Travolucion, for example, which is the largest Cuba media, digital media source out there with 432 websites dedicated to, basically shifting traffic to a major website called CubaPlus.net, which is gearing itself up for the onslaught of American travelers that are going to be booking their flights and hotels to Cuba.
So the horse is out of the barn, as they say. And
definitely.
It's time to get on board. And perhaps that's why you saw an opportunity to have this summit. Is it not, Ben?
That is correct. My business partner and I are event entrepreneurs. We saw an opportunity on December 17th, about 15 months ago, and we seized it.
What happened at your summit? Tell me how to go.
The summit was phenomenally successful. We had over 250 people, more than 30 international media outlets, and a phenomenal response from both the investor and the corporate community.
With the goal of the summit being what? To put all these people in the same room?
That's exactly right. The goal of the summit was to bring together those that had a Cuban entry plan, those that wanted a Cuban entry plan, and put them together with the decision makers, those that have been there before and those that knew how to guide them, and allow them to learn and figure out how they're going to navigate what still is a pretty challenging web of entering the marketplace.
Understood. We can show you a photo of a little bit of the summit here. How many people did you have in attendance, real quick?
We had over 250 the last iteration.
Yeah, there we go. I wanted to ask you, Vito, and this question, we can ask the same question three different ways. What does the Cuban government get out of this visit from President Obama and the resulting commerce that is to come?
Well, two things. First thing is credibility. It's going to be enjoying a certain amount of prestige diplomatically that hasn't before. And then number two, of course, commercial. There's going to be a virtual tsunami of business, especially from the United States, because you got to remember, Cuba still has to deal with geography. It's just 90 miles away from South Florida. So you can't escape that reality. So the fact that there's that economic opening between the two countries, Cuba can only stand to benefit from it.
All right, well, Cuba, that's the Cuban government. Let me narrow it down further. What do the Cuban people get out of this renewed relationship and the result of more commerce flooding the island?
Right, this is why there's this jockeying for position, if you will, of the travel companies, including not just Travolucion, but there's also Booking.com as well. They're going to have their own Cuba hotel bookings as well. What's going to happen basically is Obama's new changes now include individuals be able to book their own travel to Cuba. Before it was all groups. Now it's individuals. So there's going to be a direct interaction, if you will, between individual travelers and those that provide taxis as well as casa particulares, rooms for rental.
Yes, for sure.
So there's going to be more direct transactions between the tourists and these providers.
Were many of the people at the summit travel-related in that industry?
There was certainly a significant representation from the travel community. Norwegian Cruise Lines has been a strong supporter of the event for a long time. But we saw a significant bump in the investment community, specifically the community that cares about the sharing economy, where investors see there's a lot of opportunity in Cuba.
Sharing economy, define it, would be
basically
the
people
Ubers
don't
of the world.
The Ubers, the Airbnbs, which, as you know, are already there on the island. We had the co-founders of Revelico.com, Phenoma.com, just to say a few.
There's a lot of e-commerce transactions happening because Revolut is Cuba's answer to Craigslist.
Okay.
So the fact that they were even there is something of a big deal. And, you know, like I said, you know, you have the situation, for example, with Travelucion from June 2014 to 15, they, you know, tripled the amount of, you know, transactions and also, you know, people going on the website.
We got about 30 seconds left before we take our first break. The sharing economy means you really kind of need an internet that works. And in Cuba right now, that's pretty much non-existent.
Right.
Do you see one impacting the other, where these companies say, yeah, I want to get it going, but if that means getting your telecommunications up and running, we'll help you do that as well?
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, much of what's happening is basically commerce from the outside. So especially the situation with the online transactions is basically Cuba-driven, but it's still happening outside the island. It's going to take some time before you start seeing more transactions within Cuba because of the very poor internet infrastructure.
Okay. There was opposition to the president's visit. We'll talk about that when we come back. Sit tight. A few more questions for you guys. We'll continue our breakdown of the president's historic visit to Cuba. Still ahead on Tiempo, almost 500,000 students, mostly from low-income families, depend on CUNY for an affordable, quality education. Now, those families and students face a major tuition increase. We'll tell you what advocates are doing to stop that hike from happening when we come back on Tiempo.